Okay, second principle, and this was called Dr. Price's greatest disappointment. Every diet contained animal products. There were no vegan diets and no vegetarian diets. And Dr. Price really had hoped to find a healthy population living only on plant foods. He was honest enough to say that he did not find this, and that every culture that he visited went to a lot of risk and effort to obtain the animal foods, and all of the sacred foods for having healthy children were animal foods. It is very dangerous and certainly not fair to your offspring to bring children in the world, try to do it on a vegan diet. So animal foods include fish and shellfish, not just the skinless fillets, but the organs, the oil, the bones, the heads. Dr. Price found the best bone structure among those eating seafoods. So think of our South Sea young men and our beautiful Maryland woman, lots of seafood in the diet. Birds, not just the skinless chicken fillets, but the organs, the fat, the skin. Birds were highly prized for their fat. And especially in this part of the world, they had the geese and the ducks. And what they wanted was the fat. Many cultures ate red meat, including beef, goat, sheep, game, with the organ meats and the fat preferred. We should include pig in there as well. Milk and milk products, we find this in the European mainland and Africa. These cultures had dairy products. The cultures that did have goats and cows tended to be taller and always raw or cultured, never pasteurized, never heated. Eggs from pasture-raised chickens or from birds outside. Also reptiles and insects, these are not part of our diet. I'm certainly not saying that you have to eat these things, but we need to recognize that they were nutrient-dense foods that were prized by traditional cultures. Somebody looking for a chair? There's some chairs up front here. So there are certain nutrients that we only get from animal products, starting with vitamin A, and we're going to talk a lot more about vitamins A and D in a moment. They were very high in traditional diets, and we only get these from animal foods. Cholesterol. Now, we've been made to be afraid of cholesterol, but cholesterol is an essential nutrient for growing children. Babies and children do not make cholesterol. They need to get it from their diet. That's why mother's milk is very rich in cholesterol and has special enzymes to ensure the baby absorbs all the cholesterol. You know, in infant formula that is supposed to be so scientific and, worked out in the laboratories and everything, there's no cholesterol in infant formula for our babies. It's skim milk and vegetable oils. There's no cholesterol in infant formula that the babies need to grow normally. When you buy animal milk replacer for animals, the third ingredient is animal fat. So they know that growing mammals need animal fat, which is where we get cholesterol, but they don't put it in human milk formula. We've just gone through 2 years where we've seen this campaign to get people to take shots that kill you. Okay? Do you think there's some kind of conspiracy there? Conspiracy to reduce our numbers or to make us unhealthy? So then I look at formula and dietary guidelines, and I'm thinking, these are the same people. It's the same mentality. There are people out there who don't want us to be healthy and happy and to reproduce. So just be aware, you need to be very suspicious of what you hear. Okay, AD, cholesterol, we know vitamin B12. There's no B12 in plant foods. How do rabbits get their B12? They eat their own droppings. So I don't think any of us want to do that. And finally, certain types of fats. There are very long chain fats. One's called arachidonic acid, EPA, and DHA. We only get these from animal foods. Now, there are many nutrients that we find in plant foods. They're there, but they're much more easily absorbed from the animal foods. Starting with calcium, there really are only two good sources of calcium for human diets. One is dairy foods, and one is bones. And the cultures that didn't have cows or goats or sheep and didn't have milk, they made a special effort to eat the bones. Look at the Eskimos. They fermented their fish, and the bones got soft. That's how they got their calcium. And in many cultures, such as Native American culture, they captured small birds, small animals, and they ground up the bones and put it in their food to get calcium. B6, magnesium, iron, zinc, and copper, yeah, they're there in the plant foods, but they're often blocked. They're much more difficult to absorb, and they're much more available in the animal foods, especially zinc. One of the first things that happens in the vegetarian diet, vegan diet, is you get a zinc deficiency, and then you get kind of spacey, and that people interpret that as, being more spiritual or something, but it's zinc deficiency. B12 deficiency is very serious. The early signs are neurological. They include fatigue, tingling in the hands and feet, sleep disorders, and a tendency to irrational anger. Please don't tell me that a vegetarian diet is going to make everybody, peaceful and happy and so forth, because it makes you angry because you're not getting enough B12. And then we have the serious psychiatric disorders. About 90% of people in mental institutions are severely B12 deficient. And then, of course, serious chronic diseases like multiple sclerosis, that's a B12 problem. Anemia, cancer, and heart disease. There was a very interesting study back in 2014, I believe it was in Australia, and they had referencing, in other words, people defined themselves as whether they were vegetarian or ate meat. And then they did this big survey to see what their health problems were. And people on vegetarian diets, they had more tooth decay, more allergies, more mental illness, that's the B12. They needed more health care. They had a poor quality of life. They didn't make as much money. And they had more cancer. And this is one of these big lies they put out there, that if you eat meat, you're going to get cancer. But actually, cancer is more prevalent in the vegetarians. So lots and lots of deficiencies come from plant-based diets: A, D, K, vitamin K, B12, B6, cholesterol, calcium, iron, zinc, lysine and glycine, arachidonic acid, and DHA. It's just a very risky diet, and sooner or later you will develop serious deficiencies.